Hello everyone, and welcome once again to Caleb Likes Books. Today I have a little bit more of a discussion-based video that I'd like to do for you guys. This video was actually inspired by a video that fellow booktuber Jonathan Cohn did. Go check out his channel if you have not. He's a good friend of mine, and he makes some awesome videos. He recently, for the time I'm recording this, by the time you see this, it'll be a bit later, because I have scheduled videos out quite a ways already. So this will be going up a little bit later, but recently, at the time I'm recording this, he released a video that I really enjoyed, and I thought would be interesting to do my own version, with his blessing, of course. I already told him I was thinking about doing one, and he told me go ahead and do it, which was my philosophy on reviewing books. So there's a few things that I want to cover in this video. First of all, my rating system, and why I rate books the way I do, the way that I write and kind of do my reviews in general, because I actually do both video reviews here on the YouTube channel as well as written reviews on my Instagram and my Goodreads, and things like that. And then I also want to talk about kind of why I do my reviews, because to me that's also a very important thing for, the purpose of doing this channel. So, to get started on that, first I'm going to talk about my rating system, which I use a basic 10-point rating system, like a lot of people do. Some people do 5 stars, some people do 10, different things like that. I stick with the 10-point system with half a point increments, so 0.5, 1, 1.5, 2, so on. And because I like that, because rather than a 5-point rating system, that gives me a bit more nuance than that. Plus, doing also the 0.5 increments gives me even more nuance, so I can kind of really nail down what I'm thinking as far as a book. To me, like a 5-point system just feels a little too restrictive. I have thought about doing before, just a basic recommend, do not recommend type system, which to me would maybe work better in some ways, just because then I can actually say, I do recommend this book or I don't recommend this book, rather than doing the numbered system, which generally people have different interpretations of what the 10-point scale means. For some people, if it's below an 8, it's not worth reading, or anything like that. So I feel like maybe the recommend, do not recommend type system might work a bit better for that. But I just like the 10-point system because it kind of lets me get my thoughts out there a bit better. So the way that I do my rating system is every book that I read basically starts at a baseline of 5. Because to me, I unlike that kind of anything below an 8 is bad, I kind of look at it as 0 is just absolutely terrible, I hated it completely, blah. 10 is the best thing I've ever read, and then a 5 is pure neutral. So if I rate a book a 5, that means that I either had enough good and bad in that book that I literally think that it basically cancels each other out and leaves it at a 5, or I just have very few real feelings on the book. It's just complete, maybe it wasn't bad, maybe it wasn't really good, it was just completely in the middle for me, just no strong feelings whatsoever. And that is basically where if I'm reading a book, that's the baseline that I start from. I have seen other people do that system similarly, starting from a baseline of 0, so then doing a positive or a negative, but I like the 10-point system just because it's more common, and I think it's, just makes that a little easier, but maybe I'll change that someday and do kind of the positive negative thing, but whatever. Then, of course, if you go below a 5, to me that is something that I would say is more bad than good. Something that is above a 5 is more good than bad, although the increments of how much more good or bad something is, of course, corresponds to each number. So to me, basically anything above a 7 is something that I think is a good book and would recommend, at least generally. Maybe not to everybody, because I think some books just won't work for some people, but a book that I give a 7 or above is something that I would say I at least liked. Something in the 4 to 6 range is something that I feel is, just kind of average, just okay type of thing. Of course, like 4 being slightly below average or 6 being slightly above, and then anything below, 3 or whatever, is just something I didn't really like. Whereas, 7 is good, 8 is great, 9 is amazing, 10 is just the best thing ever. Basically, is the way that I look at that. And I tend to rate books based on the general feeling that I'm left with when I finish them. Some people will look at it very analytically and be like, okay, these are all the good things that were in it, these are all the bad things that are in it, and then kind of try to calculate it based on that. That's not really what I do. That's kind of what I do. I try to keep in mind, how much stuff I liked versus how much stuff I didn't like, and how much weighted those things are. If there's, say a lot of stuff that I did like, and then like 2 things that I didn't like, but those 2 things are really important, then it will, weigh the score a certain direction. But ultimately, a lot of the time, I just go with how I'm feeling when I finish a book. If I finish a book and I'm thinking, there was some good stuff in there, but it was not amazing, it was just kind of okay, I might give that like a 6, maybe a 7. It was something that I think was good, but it didn't really leave much impression on me. Something that I thought was absolutely wonderful, and even if maybe it had some flaws or whatever, I absolutely loved it, that will just get a higher score, things like that. If a book, some examples I can think of off the top of my head are like Star Wars Knight Errant or Dawn of the Jedi Into the Void, where, there was some good stuff in them, but generally I just wasn't into it, didn't find it memorable at all, just generally feel like it was kind of a waste of time, at least mostly, then that will just get a lower score, things like that. It's kind of a hard system sometimes because sometimes I base it a little bit more on the analytical side, and sometimes it's much more based on just the feeling I'm left with. But generally speaking, I try to stick to a pretty similar system where everything kind of just works in the 10-point system. So I just wanted to explain that, just because, like I said, some people, if you rate something below a certain score, even if it is a high score, will think it's just not worth it at all. That's not at all how I operate. I operate on, anything above a 7 is a recommendation, just flat out, I would say this is a good book. But really, I would recommend reading a lot of the books that I review, even if I don't like them, because if I don't like them, maybe you still will. And that's kind of the general mentality I have, is where, just because something didn't work for me, it might work for someone else, which I think is really cool, and I think that's one of the cool things about art in general. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was how I approach doing my reviews, both written and in video form. So obviously I do video form here on YouTube. In written form, I do them on my Goodreads and on my Instagram, both of which you should be able to find links to those on my channel. Or if not, my Instagram handle is Caleb Likes Books, as it is on Twitter as well. And then my Goodreads is just Caleb Likes Books, like it is on my YouTube channel. So my approach to doing that is I will do the written review first. I always do the written review basically as soon as I finish the book, if I'm able to. Usually I am. So finish the book, immediately write the written review, and then usually it's not until a little while later, a couple hours later or something, that I'm actually able to record my video review. So I write down my written review just to get my thoughts out there, just get stuff written down, kind of figure out what I liked, what I didn't like, just kind of get my thoughts onto something where I can just kind of look through it and be like, okay, this is, all the things that I want to say about the book. So that way, when I go to record my review, because I don't script my reviews, which is probably something that you'll be able to notice if you've seen my reviews. They tend to be a bit rambly, they tend to be a bit, me just kind of talking. But I write the written reviews just so I know the big points that I want to hit in both versions of my reviews. Occasionally with some variants, sometimes I might mention something in one review and not the other, but generally speaking, if I do something in my written review, I talk about it in my video review and just expand on it some more, because the video format allows me to do that a bit better. And so that's basically how I approach that. I tend to, again, kind of go towards the written reviews a little bit more formally. I actually read them and then I proofread them, make sure I say everything I wanted to say. Whereas the video reviews, of course, I have everything in mind that I want to say, but I just kind of talk. I don't like scripting my videos. I find that if I do that, I just don't like how it turns out. I like to just kind of talk and all that stuff. So that's how I do my reviews. So the last thing that I want to talk about is kind of the reason why I do the reviews for books and why I even have this channel in the first place, which is something I've talked about before, but I feel like it's appropriate to talk about here. And the reason why I even, do the written reviews, and even if I didn't have this YouTube channel, I would still probably do written reviews and all that stuff. First reason for that is that's just something I like to do. I like to catalog stuff that, media that I have consumed, whether that's books or movies or music or whatever. I like to, if I have read a book, I like to put down on whichever application it might be, Goodreads is the one that I mainly use, put down the rating that I would give it, all that stuff. I don't always write reviews for things, like I don't write reviews for movies or music or things like that, but I will always catalog each thing out of those categories that I have experienced, just so then I have an actual list of everything. I just like to have that. The second reason, and specifically the reason why I do written reviews and video reviews, is because I'm still pretty new to reading. I mean, I read a bit as a kid, but I really only started getting heavy into books a couple of years ago, back at the beginning of 2021. Literally in the beginning, in like January. And I always have enjoyed doing YouTube videos. I've had a handful of channels in the past, but one of the things that appealed to me about doing a channel for books is because I was so new to all of this, I could kind of catalog my journey, for lack of a better word, as I get more into books, so I can see, how that's changed over time. I can kind of just have this, perspective of somebody who's really kind of getting into all this for the first time. Because a lot of booktube channels that I've seen are people who have been into books, whether in general or the particular genre they cover, for a long time. And I wanted to offer a perspective of someone who is not like that, someone who's kind of just getting into it, has a little bit of experience, the last couple of years or whatever, but is generally, kind of cataloging my reading journey and all the stuff that I am into, and all that stuff. I just think that's a cool thing to do. And so that's basically the reason why I do these videos. So I'm glad that there are people out there who actually enjoy seeing me talk about all this stuff, because I enjoy doing it, and I enjoy just having that journey and being able to share that with other people, and have other people see the perspective that someone is maybe, I hate to say I'm more unique than other channels, because I feel like that sounds quite pretentious, but I feel like I offer a unique perspective just because I'm not someone who has been reading fantasy for 20 years or whatever. I think that's something unique about my channel that I like to offer to people. So that is pretty much everything that I wanted to cover in this video. I apologize, it maybe was a little rambly. As I said before, I don't script these. I just kind of think about what I want to say ahead of time and then just talk to the camera. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I think it's something that I actually have kind of wanted to talk about for a while. I wanted to kind of explain my rating system, explain why I do the things I do, and the way that I do them and all that kind of stuff for a little while. I just didn't really have the excuse to do so. So this is kind of a video that I've wanted to do for a while, so that's cool, I guess. So I hope you enjoyed. Let me know down in the comments if you have any even feedback for me on the way that I do things. I always would appreciate that, and what you think of the way that I do things and what I explained in this video and all that kind of thing. So that's pretty much it for today. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys next time.